Welcome to the weekend. I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later in the program, we're going to be talking transportation and a private solution, but the government won't let it happen. But first, let's talk firefighters and how much we love them. Then why are the cities stopping them from organizing? With me right now is Mark Bommer from the Kevin Bommer, sorry, from the Municipal League, the Colorado Municipal League. What is the CML?
Colorado Municipal League is a member-based organization of 265 of the city's 271 cities and towns. We advocate.
There's only 200, and how many cities and towns?
271 incorporated municipalities in the state.
Are the other one? But there are more cities and towns than that in Colorado, aren't there?
There are. It's just if they're not incorporated, then they don't count.
Okay, so there can be a city, but they're not incorporated.
Yeah.
So they're not a home rule city. They're just they're a city, and they go after through the statutes.
Correct.
Right.
200, including home rule cities. There's 100 of those. The rest are all statutory cities and towns, except for Georgetown, the only territorial charter.
Really? Mm-hmm. Georgetown? Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yes.
All right, let's bring it to this issue of firefighters.
Right.
Now, this is odd. Whenever the city of Boulder, my hometown, and the city of Colorado Springs agree on a topic, hell is freezing over. There's something not right here, or there's some bigger danger. Tell me what happened a few years ago with Bill Ritter, what the firefighters wanted, and Bill Ritter ended up vetoing it, and it's coming back. What's the issue?
The issue is for the firefighters whether or not the state government gets to tell local governments, in this case municipalities and fire protection districts, whether or not they engage in collective bargaining with their firefighters. The legislation 4 years ago is nearly identical to what has been introduced this year, Senate Bill 25. In 2009 it was Senate Bill 180, and it flew through the Senate and the House, landed on Governor Ritter's desk, and he vetoed it for some very specific reasons.
Talk about a little bit what it did. And again, it flew through because you had a democratically controlled Senate and House back then. The last couple of years, you've had that one vote majority in the House, which has kept bills like that from reaching the governor's desk, and ain't nobody happier about that than the governor. This year, he's going to have to make calls because I'm imagining this is going to land on his desk.
It's a very high likelihood this will end up on his desk. 4 years ago, you know, we had a new legislature with both houses controlled by the Democrats, and obviously Governor Ritter being a Democrat. No one really knew what to expect, and this bill came out of left field. The bill then, as now, would purport to overrule any local authority, including a home rule charter amendment approved by voters, and say that as a matter of statewide concern, local firefighter collective bargaining can be mandated by the state regardless of whether or not a local government or its voters have said no. In the case of Colorado Springs, they've twice said no. In the case of Westminster, they've said no. This would purport to say if those votes don't count, the state law would rule.
Let me kick that back to you, see if I understand it. All these towns, all these cities, they have fire departments, or they're part of a cooperative that has a fire department. And if they want to unionize, they need to work that out with the municipality. And maybe they unionize, maybe they don't unionize, but it is the municipality that has the say-so. Is that correct?
Or it's voters. I mean, one of the reasons that Bill Ritter vetoed Senate Bill 180 was because the path to collective bargaining already exists at the local level. A municipality or a fire district can, simply by voluntary agreement, enter into collective bargaining and then structure what that contract would look like. And in some cases, or like in Denver, for example, voters voted on a home rule charter amendment, which enshrined Denver's collective bargaining framework in its home rule charter. So the gamut runs from on both of those extremes, but the point is that there's a path, it exists, and voters should and have had the right to say that. Senate Bill 25 and Senate Bill 180 took that away.
So basically, should this pass, and it will pass, I think, it says that fire departments in that city can unionize on their own without approval of the people of that community or approval of the city council, the representatives. They can just say, once this is there, they say, we get to unionize. So it's the state saying you can unionize whether there's a path there or not. It's kind of like the feds telling the states, you are going to do this. Here it's the state telling these nearly 300 municipalities, you guys, you can unionize even if it costs more, even if it is less effective, even if it does anything. Your communities have no say.
That's correct, and I mean, you make a very good point. We scream bloody murder when the federal government dictates to us at the state level how we do things and how we must follow a federal guideline. But when the state dictates to local governments, sometimes people aren't as consistent in their outrage about that. You know, it's interesting thing about this bill and this whole discussion is that you have the issue of those who have already said no to collective bargaining, having it mandated upon them. But then there's other provisions in the bill for those like Denver, Thornton, Boulder, several other municipalities and fire districts that have collective bargaining. There's actually a mechanism in the bill that would allow a vote of the employees to change whatever those local frameworks are, which can be very conservative collective bargaining arrangements, and replace them with the very broad provisions of the state mandate, including being able to bargain over terms and conditions, compensation, not just equipment like as the lobby in the Capitol says, but virtually anything and everything.
There are few categories of employment that are so beloved. You know, if you want to raise taxes, you need to have one of 4 different categories represented on your brochure. You have the brochure, and the brochure has to have a cop, a firefighter in uniform, a teacher, and perhaps a nurse. These are beloved professions, and people are very sympathetic. And you know, there's a feeling we don't do enough for our teachers, we don't do enough for our firefighters. These are our first responders. So there's a real emotional impact here of these firefighters saying we want to have this union. But they can do that locally now. This is the part I want to make sure I understand completely. Right now, if the people of a community want their firefighters to be able to unionize, they can do that, correct?
That's correct. Through initiative and referendum, just like at the state level, you have initiative and referendum at the local level, or just simply by passing an ordinance locally, or even by voluntary agreement. The path
through the city council.
Absolutely, or the Fire Protection District Board. The path exists. It was one of the reasons, again, that Bill Ritter vetoed the bill 4 years ago, and why we would hope that Governor Hickenlooper, if this bill reaches his desk, would veto it as well.
Let's back away from the policy a bit and talk about the politics, because I think that's much more interesting. Colorado used to be a red state. Some argue it's a purple state. No. This is a blue state now. And therefore, I think a lot of public sector unions are feeling their muscle. And that this is a part of what happens when you have Democrats in control. Unions, government sector unions, start advancing and get more victories. It seems to me they're going to say this is payback. We helped you get into office. You have to vote for this. And most Democrats feel that way. Are there any Democrats that are coming out against this?
Publicly, no, not
really? Not
at this point. No, the only vote against the bill thus far was Senator Gail Schwartz from Snowmass Village, who voted against it in the Senate. She voted against it because it did not exempt her smaller fire department like the bill in 2009. When it passed, she was able to secure an amendment that exempted her department. That's the only no vote. She's supportive
on the Democrat side.
On the Democrat side, she's supportive of the bill, but only if it didn't apply to.
And
her
I'm
district.
assuming there is lockstep opposition to this from Republicans. Would I be right?
So far, yes.
All right. So politically, we're talking about a completely partisan issue, as partisan as you can get. Even though a lot of Democrats who are now in the state house came up through these cities. They were councilmen. They understand the importance of this. Is there a sense that a lot of them, if nobody was watching, they would vote against Senate Bill 25, but since the unions are watching, they can't? I know that's speculation. I understand.
You got one part right. This is brass knuckles politics. I mean, that doesn't get any more political than this. And when you're trying to talk policy, that's very difficult. But 4 years ago we had Joyce Foster, former councilwoman from Denver. We had Mo Keller, former council member from Wheat Ridge. Democrats, no votes on the bill based on their belief in local control, regardless of any politics that came with it. I don't have that this year. We aren't seeing it, and I don't know that we're going to.
Are there any cities in favor of this? Your organization represents mostly cities. Are they unified in their opposition, or are there a few that say bring it on? Or there's some that say, hey, we're unionized already, what do we care?
Well, you mentioned Boulder and Colorado Springs, the mayors of those two fine cities sitting at the table testifying against.
Those are fine cities? One city is fine, I'll let you guess which one.
They're all fine.
They're all fine.
And testifying against Senate Bill 25, and they both had the same thing to say, that their concerns about overriding local control were their reasons for objecting to the bill. Boulder, Mayor Applebaum from Boulder said, look, we have collective bargaining. It's worked for us. We love it. But we just don't want the state to dictate to us how we go about it. Mayor Colorado Springs.
Matt Applebaum up in Boulder, councilman, now also mayor.
Yes.
This is no conservative. This is not even somebody who is a centrist Democrat. He's a hardcore progressive Democrat. He says this is too much control.
Absolutely, because they feared, and he testified, that if the state starts setting the bar for what collective bargaining is and creates mechanisms to upset what those that have chosen collective bargaining choose to do, then and have in their charters or their ordinances, then that's a very dangerous ground to tread.
There was one other group that came out in opposition to this, which has a lot of weight, sadly, with politicians, and that's the Denver Post. The Denver Post editorial page said, do what Ritter did, hick, veto this bill. It's not like the Denver Post is a big conservative bastion. This is a pretty liberal group as well. So I was shocked by that. I was surprised. What has the governor signaled on this? Why doesn't he just come out and say what he's going to do?
First, it wasn't just the Denver Post, and it was the Denver Post twice, and it was the Boulder Daily Camera, and it was the Pueblo Chieftain, and it was the Longmont paper and the Grand Junction Sentinel. I mean, major newspapers around the state have said the same thing: veto this bill, don't pass this bill. At this point, the governor has said publicly that he's wants to continue the conversation. And an interview with Colorado Public Radio indicated that the bill in its current form, he wouldn't sign it if it came to his desk, or words to that effect. And that's about all we know at this point.
We'll keep you up to date. That's Senate Bill 25. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you. Stay tuned. This one's going to be good.